Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube, and this week we're looking at 5 more common mistakes that may come from team paddling or other off-the-water exercises that are messing up your outrigger canoe stroke. Last week we had 5 that directly stem from dragon boat, and some of them this week do, and also they stem from ergometers and just a poor understanding of movement. One of the big goals that we have here on the online school is optimizing your basic stroke. Having a full and powerful stroke to propel your craft is one of the ultimate goals to increasing your efficiency. Taking segments of that stroke to use situationally makes you a more dynamic and useful paddler in varied conditions. So the first one is a great example of that. What we're looking at is taking a stroke that is too short in the water. Typically, it's going to be short in the very front of the stroke. As paddlers put the entire blade into the water, they instantly remove it. Now, situationally, if you're trying to catch a wave or accelerate very quickly for a very short burst, this is an excellent way to propel the craft. The length in the water is not what's propelling the craft, it is the extreme turnover and the input of energy that spikes the boat speed. But when we're looking at your full stroke, if your full stroke is only that front half, you are missing a vital component in truly moving the boat. So in a time trial and flat water situation, paddlers that are not in the water long enough run out of energy as they try to sustain this for a minute, 2 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours. You can see how paddling like this is very detrimental. So having a very short stroke in the front, again, for very quick bursts, an instantaneous, I need to go fast now moment, this is the methodology to get there. You're trying to time trial, you're trying to do well on 500 meters, you're trying to do well over multiple miles. If you paddle like this the entire way, you are going to gas yourself immediately. Excellent, so we're gonna pivot back to 2 that stem from dragon boat. And this is looking at the pathing of the recovery. So the recovery is as the blade leaves the water and how it travels back to the front of the stroke. When you're in a single person boat, you're the master of your domain. You don't have to do anything and falter in any way to allow somebody else to keep synchronization. But in a dragon boat, you got 10 rows of people 30 feet behind you, and it is imperative that seat 10 hits the water just like you in seat 1. If the recovery path is too optimized, the chances of them being in sync with you is much lower. So I refer to these as built-in inefficiencies within the dragon boat stroke. And there are 2 pathings that are very common, and they're associated with letters. The first one is A, meaning that I create this big A-frame stroke and my blade is gonna go up off the water. So as I go A, my recovery pathing is going to pull this blade up into the air, and then it must travel back down to the water. The second recovery path is a D, where I'm creating a D shape off to the side. So as I complete the stroke, my blade is going to go off to the side, and as it travels out there, it has to travel back to the front. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So as we go through the recovery, an optimized recovery path is keeping this blade on a similar line to where it exits to where it hits the water at the front. Being the shortest distance is automatically the most optimized line, right? If it's any further, it is less optimized. Does that mean you have to be a robot and it has to be straight back and forth here? No, but you want to try to minimize how much it goes off to the side, especially when you're in a 1-person vessel. By introducing a third point, we have the exit, and with the D, we have another point out here, right? You can see how much longer this pathing is going to be as opposed to the straight part of a D. With the A-frame, it's very similar, right? Keeping the blade close to the water means that as you go back into the water, you don't have to travel so much. The more the blade travels up throughout the recovery, the more it has to travel down. In a single person context, you can match the stroke rate and the recovery time of somebody that has a much more optimized pathing with their blade. But what happens is you have to move faster to go that distance. Let's say the D is only double the distance of going through a more optimized pathing. Every time the D stroke takes one stroke, they have to move twice as fast during the recovery phase to match somebody that is going half the distance. Is this possible? Absolutely. Some people can paddle a very long distance doing this, but you can see how that would sap your energy. I can take the blade out of the water and I have a moment to relax and move slowly to get to my destination, and somebody matching my speed has to go double that speed. And now in a sprinting context, if I'm going as fast as I physically can here to get back to the stroke, I cannot conceive how somebody can go out here and get up there in the same amount of time. Is it possible? Sure, but what do you forego? You forego moving your hips and legs, because the only things that can move that fast is your hands and elbows, being the smaller joints. Going on an optimized path gives you plenty of time to use your bigger joints to get into position each time. Excellent, so moving on to a critique that actually stems here from the K2N Online Paddle School and some of the new school paddling ideology. Spend a lot of time trying to teach you guys how to move your hips and to turn and to rotate into a stroke. But like any concept, if you take it to an extreme, it's not a good thing. It is all about a balance of movement. So when we go through the stroke, we don't want to lean forward exclusively, because that means we break our posture and we bounce our rib cage off of our legs. This is not ideal maximal motion for performance athletes. This is just breaking your posture and flailing around. But at the same time, if I stay perfectly upright and only rotate, there is not enough leverages here for the canoe stroke to maximize the boat speed. It is about a balance of rotating and leaning forward. Finding this synergy between these two motions allows you the most amount of leverage and power throughout the stroke. So it's really common, oh man, I watched that K2N guy on YouTube and he taught me how to paddle like this. And they only rotate, and the rotation is pretty good, but you can see the boat doesn't respond to it, and there's more within the stroke that we're looking for, right? So even if you're watching these videos, don't fall into that pitfall of going into extremes. Always take these ideas into balance. So this last one stems from using a paddle style ergometer. I had a friend point this one out to me, and I've wanted to talk about this for so long, and I finally have a platform to do it. Using an ergometer is not a bad thing. Getting water time when you're unable to go to the water, that's the whole purpose of an ergometer. Where some of the issue lies is going fast on an ergometer is not going fast on the water. And so when we use the ergometers as a time trial methodology or a way to rank paddlers within a group, we run into major issues. Because now there is an incentive to figure out the ergometer. But now as you log all of these miles, you're morphing your muscle memory to being good at the ergometer. So when you go back to the water, some of these ideas do not translate. Number one thing is when you paddle a vessel, you have to use your body and a paddle moving through space to make contact with water, to propel a vessel through the water. An ergometer is a paddle shaft that is attached to a chain or a string that is directly attached to a tensioner. The more force that you can push on this solid object through space, the faster the tensioner is going to tell the computer that you're going fast. Where the problem in this is no matter how you put tension on the chain, it is going to register as speed. So what happens is as we go through the stroke, the first half of the stroke can look fine, right? We're pushing and we're going through, but I can still get tension on that chain by pushing back this way. By yanking the paddle backwards over here, I'm literally pushing that tensioner back behind me. So paddlers will end up with this backstab motion where they get through the stroke and this top hand travels backwards to the hip. And it's worth it to literally push and plunge off of here on that tensioner to get more speed on the ergometer computer. If you have watched just a handful of these videos, you know that I am no stranger to having the paddle go negative behind us, right? I spend my day job trying to encourage people to not take the blade out too soon and to go further back. But again, just like we talked about with extremes, there is a balance that we have to identify. One of the best movements to alert you that you have used up all of your leverages is the top hand's pathing. Specifically, as the top hand travels down, we want it to finish in front of our lead knee. So as we get to the end of the stroke here, pushing down and extending this top hand away and rotating, this hand should have a distinct ending position. Where this hand ends is going to kind of dictate your stroke rate, right? So if I only go to here, this is a short stroke as I go through, but if I push my top hand all the way down, I am still getting leverages behind me. Problem is when this hand travels towards your body, right? When we are in a paddling context, this motion here yields almost no leverages and no boat glide. So we're not moving a physical boat through water using this motion. So now the problem is paddlers will go through a motion that's good and then they have this built-in back stab that they're going to go through. The difference between here and here is one of the worst movements that you can see in paddle sports. Excellent. I hope those 5 tips go along with the other 5 tips that we talked about to give you some context and concepts of things that you want to avoid. If you want to move an OC1 fast, you have to move in a way that moves that specific boat fast. If you're looking for more tips to master your dragon boat time trial, check out the K2NOnlinepaddleschool.com today. We go over a lot of these mistakes. We go over some of the postural things and how they affect your movement in a lot more detail, as well as how to strategize with using a dragon boat blade, paddling on one side in an outrigger canoe, steering the boat, setting the AMA, how to keep it light, all of these ideas to maximize your next result. If you need structured training plans to help put all of these ideas together on a week-to-week basis with a coach to confer with, check out the online school and sign up today. Thank you all so much for checking out this video. We are just a skip and a jump to 5,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Big shout out to all of our YouTube members. Thank you all so much for supporting this YouTube channel. We'll see you all next week for next week's paddle tip.